So I thought about like doing an extended version of the garden tour that I did the other day on Instagram. And I'm gonna show you all the things, most of the things that we're growing here in the garden. We're gonna skip the front garden for now, and we're just gonna talk about the backyard, and I'm gonna do a separate video about the front yard. So first of all, the garden is detached from the house. This is the front yard, and this is the garden. The first thing that you see is these two dwarf trees, because I'm trying to replicate an orchard in a miniature size. So I have a couple of dwarf trees and also semi-dwarf trees. We got in total 5, and there are plums, apples, peaches, cherries, but also raspberries, Thai berries, and a few other things. So the first raised bed that we've got at the entrance, so we got one with chilies, courgettes, flowers, onions, and a few other things. I tried to use square foot gardening for this one. Also, you can see nasturtium popping over everywhere, so I'm trying to limit the amount of nasturtium by picking them by hand whenever I see them, like weeds growing everywhere. Here on the left hand side we got the tomato jungle, so we got different varieties of tomatoes growing along with flowers, herbs like basil. I put some straw inoculated with oyster mushrooms, so I have production of mushrooms and plants on the same raised bed. In front of this raised bed we got quite a few different plants, including tomato plants, lavender, but also chilies, herbs, and flowers. I think flowers are really important to encourage pollinators into your garden. I used to underestimate the importance of flowers back in the days whenever I started gardening, but now I really care about improving every year the diversity of flowers into the garden. Here we also got like 4 actually logs. They are oak logs inoculated with shiitake mushrooms, so you can place those around your raised beds. This helps to maximize the production of food because they don't take up too much space, and they can be just around your main raised beds. And as you can tell, even on the floor we got loads of wood chips, and these wood chips are all inoculated with wine caps, so even in the pathways I have production of food. Then we got this arch going all over. It's full of passion fruit, passiflora, one of my favorite flowers. Then on this side we used to have beans and peas, but we had to remove them because they dried out. But I saved all the seeds, and I also have pots that I can consume throughout the winter. Here we got a small pond that I made with one of my friends, Jack, the other day, and it's super easy to make. We got solar powered fountain that it's basically storing energy throughout the day and then working even during the night, and it helps to oxygenate the water. We got a few plants in here like iris and a few others. We got some of the flowers and berries, as I mentioned. And then if we get into the greenhouse, a bit narrow, so we're gonna try to get in here. We got different varieties of tomatoes that now are producing pretty much every single day because of the heat wave. Down there we got a melon that it's popping right now. We harvested 2. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it's growing pretty good. And we got another one up there. Then we got ginger and turmeric in the corner, and a variety of plants growing up here, including this one, which is called Malabar spinach. It's a climbing spinach, producing black fruit that it's not edible, but the leaves are edible, with a weird texture, but like whenever cooked properly, they're really good. We also got a watermelon, really small variety that it's ideal for small spaces. I don't remember exactly the name of the variety, but I'm really proud of this because I never had watermelon in my life. So then we got loads of different varieties of peppers and also bell peppers. And on this side, we got cucumbers that are producing a lot of cucumbers due to the heat wave, like a kiwano, but also crystal lemon, like this one that is producing right now. White wonder cucumber, even here. We got a few even at the bottom. I've got a bit of powdery mildew, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm pruning the plant. I'm trying to keep it as clean as possible, so to limit the spread of the powdery mildew. Then if we go on this side, here I used to have like a recycled trellis made out of old bicycle wheel, and we took it off because the peas stopped to produce, and we replaced it with like peppers, flowers, beetroots, and a few other things. I think in a small space, or even in a big space, I think it's essential to have some sort of succession growing and always be on top of replacing your plants whenever they stop to produce. And talking about replacing plants, here we had loads of different varieties of potatoes, but we replaced them all because they stopped producing. We harvested the potatoes, we're storing them indoor, they're gonna last for a long time. And now we got a few different varieties of cucumbers, including pony cucumbers, which is one of my favorite because it's ideal for pickling, but also tomatoes, chocolate lighting, which is an heirloom variety, and they're all in grow bags. As you can see, there is straw. Wherever you see straw around the garden, it means that I'm inoculating with mycelium, in this case oyster mushrooms, and this is because I can have a double production of food. I can have production up here, but also at the bottom. And I also interplant a few different flowers and herbs with the plants here. Down here on the top, so on another layer, because that's how you need to think in a small space. You think in layers, you don't think only on a horizontal perspective, but you have the vertical spaces, you have more than one layer where you can grow. You need to think out of the box and use the space as much as you can. So here we got strawberries in recycled container. Super easy to make. Literally, it took probably a couple of hours to do all of them. What we do, I don't know if I can find one, I use old muslin or fleece that I have from last year. I basically add a bit of soil close around the runners, which are the shots that the plant try to shoot out at the end of the season to reproduce itself. Without even watering, because they're taking the water from the mother plant, they're gonna produce roots just because they're in contact with the soil. And whenever they're ready, I just snip it off here and down here, and we got a new strawberry plant. Super easy trick, you can do it at home. Then in each corner of this trellis that we got up here, we got snake beans. It's a really cool variety that I really love. They grow to 1 meter tall. It's a Chinese variety. We got it even on this corner. Probably you can see it even better. They are delicious to eat, but also sometimes I leave them on the plant to dry out so I can save the seeds and plant out next year. Behind me, I've got vertical garden made using 5-liter bottles. Whenever you use plastic, make sure that it's type 2. There are safe kind of plastic that you can use, and there are others that could leave microplastic, because people are so worried whenever you mention plastic into the garden. But this is absolutely safe to use, and I can leave more information into the description. And I planted lots of different herbs like this chives that it's growing a lot, and strawberries, rosemary, flowers, and a few other things. We got a really old jade plant here in the corner. Here I've got my worm farm. This is an essential part of any garden, I think. It's super simple. So you got a spigot at the bottom down here that you can drain the leachate. That people think that that's good to use into the garden, but it's not, because that's an anaerobic liquid and it's not full of microorganisms and the actual nutrient that you want into your garden. But yeah, the worms spend most of their times here in these 2 layers, and I had to add another layer because the population improved over the year. Basically, up here I just had feed, and feed means anything that could be like leaves or food scraps or any green material. I'm gonna cover this worm farm more in depth in another video because there is a lot to say about worms. They're one of my favorite things. Here we got another vertical garden. As you can see, like all the lettuce bolted because of the heat wave. We're just gonna replace it with more plants. We got a backup of plants into the greenhouse. It's gonna be mainly herbs and probably a couple of flowers, just to balance out the amount of edible things and flowers to encourage the pollinators. Here we got a few different leafy greens, including celery, which is doing really good, kale, beetroots, and a variety of different leafy greens, and also calendula. But this plant didn't do too good just because I've got some sort of disease like powdery mildew on the leaves that is slowly killing the plant. But I'm still gonna save the seeds. As you can see, if I remove this is all seeds that I can plant for next year. Then we got a few different flowers. My hanging herb garden, which is amazing. So all the herbs are from Urban Herbs. There are a couple of strawberries in between, but it's mainly thyme, sage, some weird variety of sage that is called blackcurrant sage, that whenever it flowers, it really puts a show. And then we got my compost bin here, which I made thanks to Compost Michael, which is a guy like based in Brighton, really knowledgeable about compost, and he helped me to create this system, which is a bioreactor. And whenever it was full till like here, I decided to plant pumpkins, and now as you can see the level decreased because the organic matter gets decomposed, eaten up by microorganisms and excreted as nutrients. And so this pumpkin is thriving so good by soaking up all these nutrients that is literally growing all along the fence, and it's probably gonna go all over the place and taking over this whole part. Then here we got a water tank that we usually refill from our kitchen, and there is a hose pipe running around the fence and ending up here in the garden. And then we refill this container and we leave it here so the chlorine evaporates, so it's readily available whenever we need it. And then here we got another raised bed with rhubarb that thrived so good this season. We harvested a ton of rhubarb. And then broccoli and many other things that got decimated by caterpillars. I tried to spray it with an organic pesticide, but it still didn't work, and unfortunately, like, they got rid of all the plants. In this middle part of the garden, we got a trellis going all over this raised bed. In here we got different varieties of chilies, but also flowers, leafy greens. It's always lush, full of life. Now, because of the heat wave, obviously it's not producing that much, but the peppers are doing pretty good, producing strongly. And it's inoculated with wine cups. So I think we managed in total to harvest something like 3.5 kilos of wine cups just from this raised bed. And this is amazing. I've got my spores, the mycelium that I used to inoculate the straw from Urban Farm It. The flowers are on the top to encourage the pollinators, and down there we got a lot of a variety of lettuce and herbs and flowers, but they are starting to bolt. So again, we are probably going to replace them with a few different vegetables. This is pretty much it about the backyard garden. I'm gonna cover a few other topics more in depth like over the next video. And yeah, I hope you like the tour, and I'll probably see you next week for another tour.